whatever, what other ideas can I do to assess my students online. Okay. For example, ito, diba, you can ask them, write an online journal. Some of the teachers I've seen that post in Facebook or submit it to me online or come up with a blog, yung journal. Then some of you do reaction paper on a news article, on a situation, yan, portfolio, blog, news articles, or write the news article. If you are a newscaster, reporter, write a e-news article on this one, or a post. Diba? Sometimes, yun lang, disclaimer, don't ask your students too much to have a post and then your score is dependent on the number of likes. Kasi sometimes that's parang it's a tricky thing. My question is, what the teachers would think that is the kind of post? What are you assessing? Do they like it because they're friends, or do they like it because it's really the post is really fun? So yun, medyo a little caution on that. So if you look at the picture, reaction paper, cut it over Facebook, ganyan po, baka mamaya the student will submit something like that. Now there's a way to counter that, and we will talk about it later. It's the use of particular rubrics in scoring. Okay, you all can also do newscasts or news reports. You can do live TV review. They can videotape it, or they can do audio record, podcast, that one particular thing. And then they can do a radio show. Simulate a radio show or a podcast where they interview, and they don't necessarily need to be in the same place, diba? Can be a collaboration. If you did before, you can do other collaboration teams like Google meeting, although yun may mga security concerns, but
masakit yung ganito ko Bukas siguro sa exercise kahapon, no?
Or they can do a recording.
Kasi nag-push up ako
record naman yan, it doesn't mean live.
Para sa pantaw ng leg ng mga arms. Ang sakit.
Video exhibit, collages, yan. You can ask them to submit graphic organizer. They can do a chart, a table, and then submit it in form. Ako, I like that because I also like things to see that the students also do a presentation type in terms of a graph. They can do a collage. Pwedeng as an individual. They say, okay, yan yung typical siya, vision board, or get up pictures that are associated with this particular history figure, then explain. Or you can do this, for example, the one in the screen is a concept map where you actually put the different concepts together and how do they cluster or they group it. Now, this can also test them because it now makes them organize their thoughts as well. And then because they create a visual model for their learning that they submit to you, then mas naaalala nila and there is more recall in terms of what is being assessed or presented. And then you look at another kind is you ask the students to come up with a brochure. Diba? Right now, a lot of people like brochures, scarves, and all of those things. Come up with a brochure or chart design. Pero kailangan makita doon yung this particular concept. Or you can ask the student to make an ad. Now, when you do an ad, it's not just about the product. Let's say, for example, you're doing an ad to promote a particular history figure. Let's say, if Jose Rizal will run for office ngayon, can you come up with a poster that we can post in Facebook, kunyari, that talks about this Rizal? Yan. Or an ad about a certain, let's say, topic. Think about map. Like, map, area perimeter. Can you make advertisement using concept of the area perimeter? So again, these are methods or these are strategies to assess our students. Again, Facebook is so kind of in with almost everybody in the Philippines. You can ask the students to come up with I'm not against actually posting the activity in social media, but you can ask them to come up with a design that is similar to Facebook, where they can put a similar character profile in the style of Facebook, or a historical figure, past or present, that they do figure for. Come up with a product. Let's say they come up with a Facebook page for a particular product. Again, my principle is personal naman, but of course you can do it. I don't want to do it online, but I want to students to just simulate the design and then show it to me that if it were a Facebook post, how would it look like?
Para may pantal.
And then, so again, that's an example. You can also do to Dubai. There was a school that I went to, and I was so entertained because I saw in the side of the school they were doing exhibits of student works. One of the students' works that I was wow. I didn't even think about this. The poster that they did was in the format of an Instagram post. So there was a picture, and then there was a comment below, and then the students would like it if they like the poster, and then it goes around. So parang that's also a matter. Now, again, you can do it using social media, or you can just do like gawa ka ng infographic or picture for the student. If you don't want them to use online, then that's fine. You can ask them to draw that using a poster, take a picture of it, and send it to me. So come up with something that is familiar with them. Because again, we are talking about real life. So what also can motivate them is using authentic, not just examples, but authentic ways to present it. Like next week, different lifelines. Like when you talk about lifeline, it doesn't just talk about persons. It also can talk about a process or a particular procedure. Let's say, for example, minsan lifeline, you use in psychology, you make your own lifeline. But what if you ask your students to make a lifeline of a historical figure? Like, make a lifeline of, let's say, Jose Rizal and Andres Bonifacio. What are the high points of his life? What are the low points? So they all now recall his life, and then it's not a remembering of things, but it's also remembering the significant sequence of events. It can also be a lifeline of a process, and then paano siya submit that students can draw on their paper, they can take a picture, or they can actually utilize tools online. Like they can use in particular the paint to do it, the work, the PowerPoint or other tools to do this, and then load their activity on to you for submission. So you don't need necessarily always to do, but of course, I'm just saying these are alternatives. I'm not saying don't do the typical multiple choice, fill in the blanks. So there, because I know that's the things that we are used to. So I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying that on top of those things, these are creative ideas for you to do your online assessment. You can also do, okay, for example, you're gonna do an email, a letter to this personality, the president, or you're going to do a letter or email to your friend of what you have learned this quarter or what you have learned in this particular subject. Or you're going to make an email to this particular person about the issue. The usually thing that I ask one of the teachers to do when I do this workshop face-to-face is a recipe book. How do you come up with how do you make or not necessarily a recipe book, but if you come up with a manual, let's say a one-page manual, write it down. If you are going to do a process, parang flowchart or parang an arrow with that, tell me the steps on how to add or how to subtract or multiply, and show it to me in visual form. And then you do a person, they can do a contract. Where can contract be done? It is a contract between agreements of what has been learned. One of my favorites is also top 3, top 5, 10, and so which can be done in different ways. Like instead of asking the students to write a paragraph or reflected paper, tell them in one page, parang no less than 400 words, write down your top 3 learnings for this. So that's the tradition, kind of modified tradition. But sometimes I also say, okay, to reflect on your learning, if you're going to symbolize top 5 characters or top 5 lessons, what song or story or historical figure can you relate it to and why? Okay, for example, in math, what particular top 5 equations do you like? What or top 3 symbols that you can use? So it again, sky's the limit in terms of how you can use these particular ideas. For if you're aware of bonus thinking hacks, you can also use this. Like for example, you have a discussion for today, then you can ask particular students to use particular hats. By the way, bonus hats are talking about when you use a hat, particular hat, the thrust or the one that you need to talk about is about facts or figures, so para knowledge level. And then you talk about, pag grade green siya, you talk about new ideas. So if you have a topic, then you ask them to wear a particular hat, or to use a particular hat in thinking, or to share their synthesis or summary or concept. For example, okay, this team, you come up with your report using a white hat, this team a black hat, this team a red hat. Or individual reflection, choose 2 hats and then show me what your learning is using these particular hats. So again, it allows the students to be creative, and it allows them also to organize their thoughts on what is relevant in terms of thinking. That I use is it's a military term, but the S is another thing. I just changed it. Sometimes you also have to teach your kids to keep things short and simple. Using the proper grammar, language, and modes of internet. I sometimes, if I ask the students to synthesize, so the reason was I tell them use full with 140 letters in your reflection. One that's only like 2 sentences or 3. Or if I use a longer, I want a longer answer, I say Twitter. Note that these are characters, not words. The reason why these are important is because when you talk about what do you call this, online platforms also, the short, they have to be trained also when they use online platforms to use shorter languages for them. Okay, next week, so you just have an idea that are there questions? Yeah. Binabasa po, how do we know that the measure is effective to students? That's the purpose of from Ms. Josephine Celo. That is the purpose of why we also do. One is a self-assessment for the students, and then the other is how is it effective? Kasi una, you did your rubrics in the checklist of the skills that you put in for your students. In your checklist, was it nasagot ba o nakumpleto ba yung yung learning na kailangan nila? So, unang-una, gamitin niyo po yung rubrics niyo dun sa paggawa ng assessment. Bawat assessment, gradean nyo ng may rubrics at yung rubrics nyo dapat merong learning or mastery component. And then the other is you can also use self-assessment for the students. If you want to reflect, you can ask a fellow teacher to check it. Do you think this is an appropriate assessment for this particular skill? Or even you ask the students, do you think do you think nakapag-share ka ba ng talagang natutunan mo gamit yung assessment, or naging reflection ba yun natutunan mo? Was it the reflection of what you learned, the assessment that you use? And then the other measure is also go back to the scores of the students. If the scores are also not as satisfactory, then it may be two things. One can be your teaching is not sufficient, then the other is your assessment may not be measuring the same thing as it was intended to measure. May nabasa po akong isang kay Miss Teacher Ana, may nabasa pong article sa isang news channel na FB na may isang organization na mag-start po ng classes sa June. Some reacted because they will not risk the child's health, mas gugustuhin na lang daw ng homeschooling. There's different aspects to answer this question. One, we have to wait for the Department of whatever, what other ideas can I do to assess my students on that? For example, ito, diba, you can ask them, write an online journal. Some of the teachers I've seen that post in Facebook or submit it to me online or come up with a blog, yung journal. Then some of you do reaction paper on a news article, on a situation, yan, portfolio, blog, news articles, or write the news article. If you are a newscaster, reporter, write a e-news article on this one. Or a post. Diba? Sometimes, yun lang, disclaimer, don't ask your students too much to have a post and then your score is dependent on the number of likes. Kasi sometimes that's parang it's a tricky thing. My question is, what the teachers would, if that is the kind of post, what are you assessing? Do they like it because they're friends, or do they like it because it's really, the post is really relevant? So, yun, medyo a little caution on that. So if you look at the picture, yan, reaction paper, cut it over Facebook, ganyan po. Baka mamaya the student will submit something like that. Now, there's a way to counter that, and we will talk about it later. It's the use of particular rubrics in school. Okay, you all can also do newscasts or news reports. You can do live TV review. They can videotape it, or they can audio record, podcast, that one particular thing. And then they can do a radio show. Simulate a radio show or a podcast where they interview, and they don't necessarily need to be in the same place, diba? Can be a collaboration. If you did before, you can do other collaboration teams like Google Meeting. Although yun, may mga security concerns, but
masakit yung ganito ko Kuha siguro sa exercise kahapon, no?
Or they can do a recording.
Kasi nag-push up ako eh.
Record naman yan, it doesn't mean live.
Para sa pantone ng leg, ng mga arms. Ang sakit.
They can video exhibit, collages, yeah. You can ask them to submit graphic organizer. They can do a chart, a table, and then submit it in form. Ako, I like that because I also like to see that the students also do a presentation type in terms of a graph. They can do a collage. Pwedeng as an individual. They say, okay, yan yung typical siya, vision board, or get up pictures that are associated with this particular history figure, then explain. Or you can do this example in the one that the screen is a concept map where you actually put the different concepts together and how do they cluster or they group it. Now, this can also test them because it now makes them organize their thoughts as well. And then because they create a visual model for their learning that they submit to you, then mas naaalala nila and there is more recall in terms of what is being assessed or presented. And then you look at another kind is you ask the students to come up with a brochure. Diba? Right now, a lot of people like brochures, tarps, and all of those things. Come up with a brochure or tarp design. Pero kailangan makita doon yung this particular concept. Or you can ask a student to make an ad. Now, when you do an ad, it's not just about the product. Let's say, for example, you're doing an ad to promote a particular history figure. Let's say, if Jose Rizal will run for office ngayon, can you come up with a poster that we can post in Facebook, kunyari, that talks about Jose Rizal? Yan. Or an ad about a certain, let's say, topic, think about map. Like, map, area perimeter. Can you make advertisement using concept of area perimeter? So, again, these are methods or these are strategies to assess our students. Again, Facebook is so kind of in with almost everybody to believe you. You can ask the students to come up with I'm not against actually posting the activity in social media, but you can ask them to come up with a design that is similar to Facebook, where they can put a similar character profile in the style of Facebook, or a historical figure, past or present, that they do bigger for. Come up with a product, let's say they come up with a Facebook page for a particular product. Again, my principle is personal naman, but of course you can do it. I don't want to do it online, but I want to students to just simulate the design and then show it to me. If it were a Facebook post, how would it look like?
Para may pantal.
And then, so again, that's an example. You can also do Dubai. There was a school that I went to, and I was so entertained because I saw in the side of the school they were doing exhibits of student works. One of the students' works that I was wow, I couldn't think about this. The poster that they did was in the format of an Instagram post. So there was a picture, and then there was a comment below, and then the student students would like it. They like the poster and then it goes around. So parang that's also a matter. Now, again, you can do it using social media. Or you can just do like, gawa ka ng infographic or picture to the student. If you don't want them to use online, then that's fine. You can ask them to draw that using a poster, take a picture of it, and send it to me. So come up with something that is familiar with them. Because again, we are talking about real life. So what also can motivate them is using authentic, not just examples, but authentic ways to present it. Okay, next week, different lifelines. Like, when you talk about lifeline, it doesn't just talk about persons. It also can talk about a process or a particular procedure. Let's say, for example, minsan lifeline, used in psychology, you make your own lifeline. But what if you ask your students to make a lifeline of a historical figure? Like, make a lifeline of, let's say, Jose Rizal and Andres Bonifacio. What are the high points of his life? What are the low points? So they all now recall his life, and then it's not a remembering of dates, but it's also remembering a significant sequence of events. It can also be a lifeline of a process, and then paano siya submit that students can draw on their paper, they can take a picture, or they can actually utilize tools online, like they can use in particular the draw, the paint to do it, the PowerPoint or other tools to do this, and then load their activity on to you for submission. So you don't need necessarily always need to do, but of course, I'm just saying these are alternatives. I'm not saying don't do the typical multiple choice, fill in the blanks. So there, because I know that's the things that we are used to. So I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying that on top of those things, these are creative ideas for you to do your online assessment. You can also do, okay, for example, you're gonna do an email, a letter to this personality, the president, or you're going to do a letter or email to your friend of what you have learned this quarter or what you have learned in this particular subject. Or you're going to make an email to this particular person about the issue. The usual thing that I ask one of the teachers to do when I do this workshop ng face-to-face is a recipe book. How do you come up with how do you make, or not necessarily a recipe book, but if you come up with a manual, let's say a one-page manual or something, write it. If you are going to do a process, parang flow chart, or parang an arrow with that, tell me the steps on how to add or how to subtract or multiply, and show it to me visual form. And then you do a person, they can do a contract. Where can contract be done? It is a contract between agreements of what has been learned. One of my favorites is also top 3, top 5, 10, and so which can be done in different ways. Like, instead of asking the students to write a paragraph or reflect in paper, tell them in one page, parang no less than 400 words, write down your top 3 learnings for this. So that's the tradition, kind of modified tradition. But sometimes I also say, okay, to reflect on your learning, if you're going to schoolize top 5 characters or top 5 lessons, what song or story or historical figure can you relate it to and why? Okay, for example, in math, what particular top 5 equations do you like? What or top 3 symbols that you can use? So it again, it sky's the limit in terms of how you can use these particular ideas for. If you're aware of bonus thinking hacks, you can also use this. Like, for example, you have a discussion for today. Then you can ask particular students to use particular hats. By the way, bonus hats are talking about when you use a hat, particular hat, the thrust or the one that you need to talk about is about facts or figures, so para knowledge level. And then you talk about, pag green siya, you talk about new ideas. So if you have a topic, then you ask them to wear a particular hat, or to use a particular hat in thinking, or to share their synthesis or summary or concept. For example, okay, this team, you come up with your report using a white hat, this team a black hat, this team a red hat. Or individual reflection, choose 2 hats, and then show me what your learning is using these particular hats. So again, it allows the students to be creative, and it allows them also to organize their thoughts on what is relevant in terms of thinking. That I use is It's a military term, but the S is another thing. I just changed it. Sometimes we also have to teach our kids to keep things short and simple. Using the proper grammar, language, and use of internet. Sometimes if I ask the students to synthesize, so the reason was I tell them use bold with 140 letters in your reflection. One that is only likely 2 sentences or 3. Or if I use a longer, I want a longer answer, I say literally. Note that these are characters, not words. The reason why these are important is because when you talk about what do you call this, online platforms also, the short, they have to be trained also when they use online platforms to use shorter languages for that. Okay, next week, so you just have an idea that are there questions? Yan. May nabasa po, how do we know that the measure is effective to students? That's the purpose of from Ms. Josephine Celo. That is the purpose of why we also do. One is a self-assessment for the students, and then the other is how is it effective? Kasi una, you did your rubrics in the checklist of the skills that you put in for your students. In your checklist, was it nasagot ba o nakumpleto ba yung what you call this, yung learning na kailangan nila? So una-una, gamitin niyo po yung rubrics niyo dun sa paggawa ng assessment. Bawat assessment, gradean niyo ng may rubrics para at yung rubrics niya dapat merong learning or mastery component. And then the other is you can also use self-assessment for the students. If you want to reflect, you can ask a fellow teacher to check it. Do you think this is an appropriate assessment for this particular skill? Or even you ask the students, do you think do you think nakapag-share ka ba ng talagang natutunan mo gamit yung assessment, or naging reflection ba yun? Natutunan mo, was it the reflection of what you learned, the assessment that you use? And then the other measure is also go back to the scores of the students. If the scores are also not as satisfactory, then it may be 2 things. One can be your teaching is not sufficient, then the other is your assessment may not be measuring the same thing as it was intended to measure. May nabasa po akong isang kay Miss Teacher Ana, may nabasa pong article sa isang news channel na FB ng isang organization na mag-start po ng classes sa June. Some reacted because they will not risk child's health, mas gustuhin na lang daw ng homeschooling. There's different aspects to answer this question. One, we have to wait for the Department of